So sorry. I'd like to call the January 26, 2009 meeting of the Hazlet Board of Education to order. If you would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, you rabble rousers down there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, do we have any correspondence?
We do not this evening, thank you.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Mr. Kleige, a student representative, report, please.
Okay, I'm going to start with Wilkeshire. The staff and students had a practice lockdown recently, and the students did a great job of what was asked from them. Wilkeshire had their annual Winter Story Feast on Saturday, January 24th. It was a fun-filled day of storytelling, crafts, food, and fun. Many of the Wilkeshire staff volunteered their time, reading stories, assisting in the crafts, and serving the food. At Murphy, the Murphy PTO is sponsoring Murphy Family Fun Night this Friday from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And goal-setting conferences in the Scholastic Book Fair will be held next week. And the Murphy staff and students are working to become a green school. And Murphy hopes to have status as a green school by the end of the year. Onto Aurelia, they're having goal-setting conferences the first week in February. And the Writing Club will also be starting in February. And the Kindness Committee will be supporting a food drive February 9th through the 13th. At the middle school has recently been randomly selected to participate in the pilot MEEP test called the MEEP Access Assessment. This test will be given to approximately 25 students tomorrow and Wednesday. And the middle school has also had 90 randomly selected 8th grade students who will be participating in the National Assessment of Educational Progress. And this test will be given on February 11th. And finally, to the high school, Kelly Shibley was named Channel 6 News' Athlete of the Week. Second semester began today. The bands and choirs are becoming prepared for concerts, and festival. And 8th grade orientation will be Monday, February 2nd at 6:30 in the Media Center. All 8th grade parents and students are urged to come. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Nice job. Thank you for the updates. Next is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Fowler. The annual school election will be held Tuesday, May 5th, 2009. There are 2 4-year terms open on the Hazlet Board of Education. The terms run from July 1st, 2009 through June 30th, 2013. And Mrs. Barbieri and Ms. Cody's terms will be expiring on June 30th, 2009. And they announced at the January 12th regular board meeting that they will be seeking re-election to the Hazlet Board of Education. And both of these individuals have served on the board for the past 4 years. Additionally, on May 5th, the Hazlet Public Schools will be seeking a building and site sinking fund millage renewal vote. And we will be making presentations in the near future to community members in the coming weeks. And then the Hazlet Public Schools, like many other school districts in the state of Michigan, will be applying for dollars through this new stimulus package that has been introduced by the federal government. And so we'll be anxiously awaiting to see if we receive any dollars through this new package. And then finally, I have Brian Town that has a few words that he wants to talk about his Vision 22 semi-annual telethon.
Good.
That will be, I think it's taking place in February. Is that correct, Brian?
It is, yeah. No, March. March. Pass those along. Just real quick, we do one every other year, and this is our 5th telethon. And so it's always an anxious time about right now because it's sort of, we're not ready to quite producing a whole lot, but we're getting there. And so it's just a matter of time now. We're collecting things from businesses right now, and this tough economy, our goal, it's gonna be a little tougher to reach, but I think we'll be okay. The kids are doing a great job right now. I just wanted to let you guys know. And if you have any connections that would want to have items on the bid board, that would be fantastic. It's a great advertising package, and last time everybody bid on the internet. It was a great thing, and we just did a pre-auction with 5 iPod Touches that we had. And because Apple donated those to us because people bought stuff through our website, and they said, well, here's 5 iPod Touches, and Jess said we should auction those off, and we did. And those went quick, and we got like $1,000 just from those. So I think it'll be successful. I think the key is, my only worry is, we've done it so many times that I think the production and the night itself is no big deal. We've got it down pretty good. The last telethon was really successful. So I just want to make sure we get enough items on there to help reach our goal. So if you have any ideas on that, just get a hold of us. HazlittVision.com, and also our website. That's the letter that we give to businesses. And so far, so good. We're going to be streaming on the internet again for the telethon, and so it'll be all over, so people from all over can watch it. And I keep saying this will be my last one, but the kids know I say that every time. So I think it's going to go really well. I think it's going to be a great night, and should be a lot of fun. So if you have any ideas, call me.
You'll be glad to know the kids are already making phone calls.
Yes, they are.
I got 2 phone calls today.
Good. Yeah,
So
I got on
they're
today
on it.
just because I'm like, you guys, we got to do this. We got to get going. So,
That's
but
great.
they're doing great.
Yep, they're on it.
I'll tell them to call you again. No, just kidding.
And what did you say?
Of course. Of course.
Thanks, Brian. A question on the stimulus package. Do we know the time frame on that? Is there a?
Well, it's going to be over the next 2 years. It's $142 billion that is targeted for schools.
We don't need that much, do we?
But in fact, I have the article right here. But a lot of it will be used for energy and infrastructure kinds of things. We're looking at offsetting some costs in rouging areas, as well as possibly additional security measures for our buildings. So.
Keep your fingers crossed. Yep.
Any other questions for Superintendent Duda? Okay, thank you. We have one discussion item this evening. We are happy to have Angela Dove from the Hazlitt Community Education come and give us a little update on what's happening at
That
Community
made it
Education.
sound like you were going to discuss me.
That's afterwards.
Well, I'll leave it up. Well, I am thrilled to come and share with you all the exciting things we have going on with enrichment and recreation. And I have a lovely PowerPoint. Very good. And actually, while she's getting that up, I am constantly, when I'm in my office, and I'm up to my eyeballs in soccer balls and 600 plush teddy bears for daddy-daughter dances and birthday gift bags and craft supplies, people come by my door and they stick their head in and they go, oh my gosh, your job looks like so much fun. And it is. My job is a lot of fun. But it's important to me for everyone to, this is kind of my opportunity to clarify that while it is fun and it's a great time, it's also fun with a purpose. Like, there is a reason for the enrichment and the recreation and all the stuff all over my office. It's not just because I'm messy. It's because these are ongoing programs with ongoing benefits. So. And some of those benefits are individual benefits, such as improved academic performance, a reduction in stress, improved health for all ages, an increase in self-esteem, self-confidence, leadership opportunities. We get children in our craft programs when they're younger, in our middle school programs as they grow. They get to be high school. They come back for daddy-daughter dance and Shamrock Rock and to volunteer and everything else. So that is where those leadership opportunities come in. And some of those community benefits are that it builds and strengthens a sense of community, reduces adult and juvenile crime, and one of my favorites, it really connects families, not only to each other, but family to family. So I like that. And then some of the economic benefits are it increases property values, reduces health care and insurance costs, reduces employee absenteeism, increases productivity, and then partnerships with our area businesses stimulates our local economy. And in addition to formal partnerships, such as like ATA Taekwondo classes that we offer together, we have our daddy-daughter dance, we have about 600 attendants. And those attendants go out, maybe get something special to wear. Mr. Fowler always looked very dapper. They might go out to one of our local florists and get flowers. And I would say a lot of them go out to our local restaurants. So not only do we see the benefits, but our community sees the benefits.
Love date nights.
Yeah, it's a big night. And then we also have our mother-son dance, but that's just our one example. These benefits come through the 650 enrichment and recreation programs we offer per year. We process approximately 5,000 registrations. Now that's not necessarily 5,000 people, but that's 5,000 participant contacts more. And then about 70% of the households in Hazlet actually do not have school-age children at home with them any longer. So these programs are a great way to serve those people and keep them involved in our school district and get them into our buildings to see how beautifully they're maintained. 12% of that 70 are Hazlet important people, our HIP people as we call them. A HIP card is something that is available to anyone who lives within the Hazlet School District who is 62 years of age or older, and entitles them to free admission to district athletic events, school plays, and community education classes. And we currently have, and this is since we started actually keeping track, 400 card holders attending not just our classes, but school events, athletic events, and so it really keeps those ties. Your children graduate and you are still part of this district. And our HIP card members, as well as other adults in the community, take advantage of our technology classes, online courses, cooking courses, fine arts and crafts, great outdoors, money matters, dance and movement, drop-in athletic programs, meditation, yoga, and quite a few more. And then this is what more people are familiar with, which we are youth enrichment programs. A couple examples are our sketchbook studio art courses. We've just started this past year and are going just wonderfully. Acting is fundamental with Bill Gordon. He does quite a bit of work over at Murphy, and this has been a very consistent program. Kids in the Kitchen, it's a class I do myself. We do awesome after-school snacks, storybook cooks, things like that. Our 16 trips we do a year, we partner with Meridian Township, which is just great. We open that up to Hazlet and Okemos students, but we predominantly have Hazlet students. ACT prep workshops, American Red Cross babysitting certification, and of course, much more. Just a catch-all. And in addition to the enrichment opportunities, we partner with parent-run clubs and help them administer some of these programs, such as Hazlet Blue Marlins, Eastside Soccer, Hazlet Lacrosse Club, Hazlet Youth Football, and then our programs would be folk-style wrestling, karate and taekwondo, instructional volleyball, competitive cheer, high school water polo, high school fencing club, which is growing every semester, a baseball clinic, and softball clinic. And then just as the school year winds down for everyone else and they take off, this is what we do over the summer. Just a sample of it is our Boys and Girls Hoop Camp, our East Coast Advantage Lacrosse Camp, Volleyball Camp, Cross Country and Track, Boys and Girls Soccer, Gymnastics Camp, Winning Edge Football, Youth Sailing at MSU Sailing Center, Junior Golfers, GRASP Academic Enrichment, our Safety Town program, Camp Learn a Lot with Bonnie Woods, Filmmaking with Mr. Brian Town, an excellent program, Science Camp with Mad Science, and then Shooting Stars with Kelly Rohrig, former MSU All-Star, all-around wonderful role model coach. And then throughout the year, everyone from our infants to our HIP card members take advantage of our aquatics activities, our Learn to Swim and Learn to Dive, aqua fitness, parent-taught water exploration, scuba certification, kayaking. Another one that has grown leaps and bounds just this session is that kayaking. Spartan Diving Club has Blue Marlins and Mini Marlins. Dive-in movies, and then our splash birthday parties are something that community members can come in and have a private pool party. I put together the gift bags, which is one of those things that people peek in and say, well, that looks like fun. It is. And that is a growing popular party to have. And another way we try to serve our entire community is through our special events, such as our Daddy-Daughter Dance, which I mentioned, our Mother-Son Shamrock Rock, Senior Dinner Theater, where our seniors, and actually not just Hazel seniors, but we get quite a few Okemos and Williamston seniors who come. They have a dinner, and I usually try to include some sort of themed centerpiece, and then they get to go and watch our fabulous high school musical, their dress rehearsals, which tend to be flawless in my opinion, so it's a great time. Our senior bunco brunches, Hershey Track and Field Meets, Pump, Pass, and Kick, Mother-Daughter Luau, an underwater egg hunt, Dive In with Dora, American Girl Day Trip, that's to Chicago, mothers and daughters, grandparents, aunts. And then this year we did our Chicago Lights Festival and Shopping Express, which was full with a waiting list and a great trip. I highly suggest it, and I highly suggest registering early. And of course, none of these things would be possible without our facilities, which is another thing that falls under kind of our department's jurisdiction is facility use. And we process multiple reservations for about 150 school and community groups. And our facility use outside of athletic fields totals 14,000 hours beyond the school day per year. And that is a lot because it takes case predominantly during the school year, falls off quite a bit in the summer. So when you consider that during the school year, for 3 weeks out of that time, for the most part, we don't have anybody in here, and we have minimal use on Sundays, it breaks down to a lot of activity. And the percentage by building is 56% of that you find at the high school, about 17% at the middle school, 10% in Meridian Community Ed building, 7% at Raleigh, and 5% at Murphy and Wilkshire. And so I just wanted, in conclusion, really to thank staff and our community members and our students who all support our program throughout the year. And then really, not really, but more than that, I'd like to thank my co-workers, Betty Oberg and Sue Peak and Jean Minima, who really top notch. So, thank you. Questions?
Angela, you mentioned that we have 400 HIPAA cards issued.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea how many of those folks are actively using them?
I looked it up, and for the fall session, we had a little over 100 HIP card users registered for classes.
Registered for classes.
And so that was just the fall session. It varies session to session. The winter, we usually see a little fall off because a lot of people, HIP card holders don't like to come out if the weather, if it's iffy, that kind of thing, and some of them leave for the winter. But the spring and the fall, very popular. We've had people call when they're 61 to say they're going to turn 62 in a month, and yoga starts a week later, and what can you do about that? We've had people call who are just out, just like blocks from the school district and say, but I'm almost in Hazlitt. It's like, but it's not the same, but it's very close. And we've had people who've moved into Marsh Point who, as soon as they've moved in, have come over to get their card because to them it was a selling point. So
That's great.
It's a hot item.
Do you know, I'm sorry, Beth. Do you know what where are the majority of those people going? Are they attending like the high school musical? I mean, can you even tap into the particular events that they're attending?
I know with our classes, they attend a lot in aqua fitness. Quite a few in the computer classes, and the art classes are by far the most popular. But then, 62 is younger and younger, so they're
right,
really.
it is.
You bet.
It is. They're so, everyone's so still active, and so really they're in everything. I mean, that is where you see the most abundance. And women's weight training, yoga, I mean, really in the fitness realm. So actually, yeah, pretty much everywhere. With the exception of the money matters. So I think they've got it all figured out because we don't seem to find them in the financial classes so much. So they must know something I don't.
I just wanted to comment that over the years, we've done quite a few of the different offerings through community ed. In fact, last year we did the dog obedience class, which was excellent. And, every single time we've done it, I've always been very, very pleased with, I don't know how you're screening the people that you have doing the classes and so forth, but They really are good classes, so I definitely would recommend them to anybody.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Mrs. Bowden?
I just wanted to, you mentioned very briefly about the cooperation with Meridian Township, and that's something that I know I've noticed over the last couple of years of how you've worked with them and how that's been, you know, a great thing, and it kind of seems to help the goes around comes around with the kids that are in the sports programs, coming back and volunteering, not just in, you know, your summer camps and stuff, but the township's events,
Right.
and it's been a great thing to watch, so hats off to coming up with that and working on that partnership.
Yeah, that is, I mean, that's a very important partnership. Not having the advantage of someone else in the same area who has the same, you know, in your office that does the same job to bounce things off of, it's wonderful to have them so close. And then Southern Michigan Recreation and Parks Association, which is this Lansing area, and then Michigan Recreation and Parks Association, all of those affiliations, you cannot believe the amount of information that they make available. It's wonderful.
Tobias?
One observation and one comment. I guess I was a little bit stunned at the amount of hours that are utilized within our building, which leads me to compliment our maintenance staff and the effort that they put into keeping our buildings in such fine shape and the effort. We're constantly 24/7 almost in use,
Yes.
which is pretty amazing and what an asset to the community. Secondly is just a compliment that you do a fantastic job.
Thank you.
I've worked with you many years through HIRA, and that again was a nice segue into Meridian Township, which Mike Devlin and Luann Maisner's group is just fantastic. But Angela, you are a tireless worker. You always bring a wonderful attitude to the program, and you're exceptionally reliable and responsive, and we appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate being here.
And I would just add, I'm fairly involved in the Hazlitt Blue Marlins program, which is growing by leaps and bounds, and just appreciate the support you give that one. And I know you do it for all of those parent-run clubs and parent-run programs.
Yes, well, and for each of those, there is a group of parents and a group of volunteers that is doing so much coordination on their part to really bring that together as well. So it's a great way to spend a day.
One other question I thought, thinking out loud, have we ever taken any of these classes that the hip card people are interested in taking, like to someplace like Marsh Point? Or have we ever, I don't know if that would be,
Marsh Point,
or some other location, if we see it as a community outreach, is there a scenario where something might be appropriate to do that way? I don't know.
they sometimes have brought people to us as a group because they're not really, they're just, they're a senior living community, they're not assisted living. And so they do some activity coordination amongst themselves. They do have usually a part-time or quarter-time activity director on staff. But the senior dinner theater, they usually bring a small like mini, I was almost said party bus, but you know, 25 person bus over, that kind of thing. I'm sure they're enjoying themselves. They usually bring a group over to us. And then I was attending these senior connections meetings that were with a network of people who did senior programming in the area. And because we have seniors in everything, then we haven't had too many things to outsource, because the other nice thing is that it brings such a multi-generational aspect to everything we have that they're all blended together. Except for the aqua aerobics would be hard to outsource with the pool, but it's a thought. So.
Angela, tell us a little about budget, just in sort of round figures. I mean, that's a lot of programs. What kind of, you're bringing in a lot of income from registration? What, just overall?
Overall, it depends. Every program is different. It makes a difference if a lot of the hip card people register for one program, then really it makes that a more expensive program, where then you have, like our Chicago trip made, that was one weekend, and I think it was like a $2,000 profit. And then we have family trips, like the American Girl trip, where we don't set the profit margin so wide to try to keep it affordable, because the bus and the dinner itself is quite expensive. And anyone who's coming is probably paying for at least 2 people, which means it's a minimum of $120 just for the day. So we don't aim to make a lot off that. So I'm budgeted to bring in a certain amount, and I think I typically hit that number. So there we go, over 100,000.
Over 100,000. That's all I was trying to do, is get a
Yeah.
sense of the scope of the scale of.
And that's not, those partnerships that you see, there are clubs and camps. I mean, this is a good thing to clarify, because I know people who are paying into those don't always understand, but like when you pay for Blue Marlins, we take $8 per registration, and that helps offset the costs of what we do and credit card charges. But really, the rest of that money goes into Blue Marlins,
The
and
club.
only they can spend it. So for all those club partnerships, that truly is their money, and we don't,
Right.
someone asked me that today, and I thought, wow.
And it's
people
probably
think
set
that
at
we're
a dollar
spending
amount that just sustains them, really.
Yeah, but like if they happen to have, youth football, sometimes after their banquet, they might have a little bit left, and they have that the next fall to put into uniforms. So we don't go in and sweep any money out, like that truly belongs to those organizations.
And
So
that's a lot of accounts to pay attention to and keep
It
track
is.
of, and
Sioux Peak is,
audit and all those things, yeah.
Yes, there are, aren't there?
well, and then it's an ongoing balance.
Well, and the point of the community ed, one of the main points to me is that we bring the community into our buildings on a regular
Mhm.
basis. They know when they vote that they are voting for a district that involves them in activities. They're getting a benefit whether they have kids in school or not.
Yes.
A direct benefit rather than just an indirect one.
And they get to come in and really see, like Mr. Tim said, the condition they're kept in, but also just bond dollars at work, that these buildings really do not look as old as they are. Like, I am shocked when
Oh, yeah.
when I found out how, the year some of these buildings were built, you never know. They have been so well maintained and kept up to date, and people really enjoy taking things here, and instructors really enjoy teaching here. Like, that's the other thing, it's not hard for us to get instructors because they really love these facilities. So, it's a great place to run programs.
Any other questions or comments? Angela, great job. Thank you for your enthusiasm, and what a great job you did.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Okay, board reports. Let's start with Finance and Facilities Committee. Mr. Frank.
Well, of course, we have met. Finances, we've had such a nice upper presentation from Angela, and then we slide into finances. It's kind of a rebound now, I'm afraid.
Steve feels.
Yeah, Steve is not showing a very happy picture here. We covered several areas in our committee meeting. The first one being the sinking fund that Mr. Duda mentioned is going to be on the ballot in May. That, of course, is up for renewal. If it isn't renewed, then we will no longer have a sinking fund. Hopefully that will not happen. That is, that we won't have a sinking fund won't happen. And I'm going to digress a little bit, which I don't normally do, but there's a lot of, I think, discontent out there. There's a lot of pessimism out there. Millages I'm not particularly happy with. I'm happy I have another 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks to come up with my final money for the winter tax bill. But I'm not happy about having to come up with that. But having said that, I think the sinking fund is one of the things that I personally think is pretty crucial. And, there are millages that I'm not happy with. I wish I didn't have to pay. I won't identify them, but they are out there. The sinking fund isn't one of them. What what happens with the sinking fund, I'm sure everyone here knows, is that if you don't have that, then you're gonna have to find the money someplace else, possibly even a bond or something, because the uses of that are very narrowly restricted. Things that we've used it for in the recent past are the energy program, which has been a wonderful economic savings that we wouldn't be readily able to do without the sinking fund. Anything from that to the roofs that we've had to replace and are going to have to continue to replace in the future. The press box, as you'll recall, was a year ago, 2 years ago, was unexpectedly all of a sudden had to have some substantial work done on it, and it was the sinking fund that enables us to do that without cutting into our educational budget. So hopefully that will come forward. But then moving into there, we've got the budget situation that we're looking at, and particularly for next year. I'm afraid that does not look very rosy. We are looking at a net student loss, I believe, of somewhere around 93 students anticipated. Significant part of that's from Meridian High, probably. You know, given the trends in the state, if anything, certainly isn't my area of expertise, but if anything, I'd question if that isn't overly optimistic and may actually have a greater student loss. This isn't because it's Hazlitt. You know, Hazlitt is a great place to be, but it is, the places that aren't great places to be are having a much worse problem. But it is inherent, unfortunately, in our state right now. The total, we're not expecting any increases in the foundation allowance for next year at this point in time. The state budget just doesn't look like it's going to allow that. And if that's the case, I believe the projected shortfall is something just shy of $1,700,000 for next year. I believe that's the ballpark. So that's very sobering. And Mr. Duda and Mr. Cook are going to have to do some real figuring and figure out how we're going to deal with this.
Well, we just received some additional dismal news today in that we expect a shortfall in our special education funding this year, which adds to that shortfall. So we're looking at anywhere between 1.8 and probably $2 million.
Well, you know, as everyone at this board is aware, in the past, in the very recent past, such as this year, we've been able to patch over short-term by using the some of our fund balance, but obviously you can't keep doing that, and the fund balances will go away, and then you're in really deep trouble. So we do not have an excessive fund balance by any means. If you look at other districts, that's like your checkbook balance. You know, you get down to zero and you got yourself a problem, especially if you don't have your groceries yet for that week. You know, school districts have an analogous situation. On the somewhat more positive side, although less significant savings, but still savings nonetheless, the bond refunding that we authorized delegating the authority on recently looks like it is going to be able to go forward. There's been some changes in the bond market and will result in some savings there. Nowhere near the budget shortfall, but you know, any savings is good savings, especially when you can do it just by cutting down on your interest payments. And that was pretty much our committee meeting.
Thank you for that uplifting report. Well, I think we all know that we have some very difficult decisions ahead of us, and thank you for your leadership on that committee. Any questions or comments? Let's move along to the Policy and Personnel Committee.
Well, we actually had the same presentation, and so we heard the same things. I'd like to thank Steve Cook for laying out for us in layman's terms so that we understand it. It's not an easy presentation to give, so Steve, hats off to you. I also would like to just reiterate to our Hazlet community that this is a renewal on the building and sinking fund. It is not new dollars, so all we're asking is really a continuance of what we have been doing since 2001? 1999, okay, so 10-year renewal. And, you know, we also would like for you to know that, you know, we keep a good eye in the legislature on legislation that can benefit our district, and there is some legislation out there right now that has been introduced by Representative Mark Meadows and supported by Gretchen Whitmer to expand the sinking fund and to be able to use those dollars in more productive ways for school districts. And so we're going to keep our eyes on that too. But right now, the sinking fund is important to this district. I can certainly say that our superintendent and Sharon Jones and Steve Cook are good stewards of our Hazlet taxpayer dollars. So I certainly hope that each and everybody in the community will have an opportunity to get out and vote for that May 5th. And then in addition, you can certainly vote for 2 school board candidates that happen to be sitting very close to me as well. So that's it. That's really, we had the same presentation, Rob, so I appreciate you giving me the time.
Items from school board members, Mr. Tim.
And I have one. This issue of the sinking fund simply can't be underestimated. Professionally, I work with a group of individuals that counsels financial institutions across the country. And one of the things we're hired to do is to help look at strengths and weaknesses in balance sheets and the best utilization of capital for these institutions. When you take a look at the different roles that this sinking fund plays for the school district and the critical aspects from a very pragmatic sense, the utilization of these funds for things that do not cut into our operating budget can't be underestimated. If you are essentially looking at some sort of a roofing project that might cost $250,000, and you don't have the ability to utilize a sinking fund, which again, as Kristen pointed out, it's just a continuation of what we're currently paying in our tax bill, then you're looking at chopping $250,000 out of a school budget, an operational budget that will affect the classrooms and our students. And essentially, that's not an item if a roof goes out or a boiler goes out, a luxury item that we can choose to defer sometime in the future. It is a wonderful, powerful way to leverage the school's balance sheet to address very critical issues that are highly regulated as to how they can be utilized. And it has proven very, very useful to the school district over the past 10 years, as Chairman Frank had mentioned, in particular to the energy program, which, if I'm not mistaken, we look to recover the cost 2 years ahead of schedule. Is that correct, Steve? So again, as Kristen pointed out, our leadership here, our administrative team, our financial team is very judicious and very responsible with the tax dollars that the community has entrusted us with.
Very good. Other items from the board? Beth?
I'd just like to add, you know, on that same note, on a more practical basis, anybody that has any questions or concerns about the sinking fund, there's going to be quite a few various meetings. All you gotta do is call the administration building, you'll get the dates and where they're gonna be, and that there will be lots of information there, and you know, that I urge any groups or any people that have questions about it, just to take advantage of that.
And we would offer the community an opportunity just to stop in, make an appointment, and we'd certainly be happy to sit down with you. In addition to those meetings, we certainly will make time for you if you want to stop into the administration building. So if feel free to do that.
Any other items from the board?
I want to report on a couple of committee meetings I attended last week. The Ad hoc Committee for Struggling Students met on Wednesday, and I know we'll be talking more about that at our next board meeting, but I just wanted to reiterate that that is full of a number of intelligent, compassionate, dedicated Hazard Public School employees that are really working hard and putting their heads together to try to come up with the best possible way to serve all of our students. And the committee mostly spent last week meeting trying to define struggling student, which I didn't realize how hard that would be until we started trying to, and we realized that definition could get huge. But at the same time, you don't want to eliminate anyone. If the definition were too huge, then you're paralyzed from getting started. So we don't quite have it refined yet, but the direction is moving really toward looking at academic measures to define that group of students. And in an effort to do that, we've asked for some data from the high school and from Meridian High School and from the middle school, and actually from 5th grade as well, to identify students who are failing classes and failing subjects, hoping to have that as a starting place. So again, we'll hear more about that next week. And if anybody has any other questions, please let me know about that. If there aren't any right now, then I'd like to talk a little bit about the MASB committee meeting I was at on Friday on the Government Relations Committee. I mentioned last meeting that this meeting was largely going to be about creating the priorities for the association's government relations work. And we ended up looking at it in two pieces. One would be a relatively short list of short-term things that we were asking the board to direct the association staff to work on. And then the second would be some longer-term issues that we don't want to forget about and make sure that we were kind of watching along the way. So there will be a document that I haven't seen yet, but we'll have sort of those two pieces to it. And we wanted to view it not only as direction for the staff and a recommendation to the full MASB board, but also as a member and community document too, to show what the association's doing. But the things really to mention were on the short-term priority list. There were a couple of things that I heard both at the ISOA meeting that Lori invited me to, as well as from those of us here and our administrative staff. And those were to try to address the issue of the potential mandate of all-day kindergarten, and it doesn't appear that the state government is really going to let that go, but at least recognize that maybe it needs to be delayed and given some more flexibility to districts, especially given everyone's financial situation, to expect that in a year every district can just flip a switch and offer full-day kindergarten completely is unrealistic. So that's definitely going to be a priority to work on that. And then secondly, I think we're going to work to ask the legislature to start mandating not just hours of instruction, but days of instruction. And there seemed to be a consensus that was an important thing we need to get back to, that we had been missing. So the rest of the priorities are largely financial. The sinking fund legislation, as Kristen mentioned, and then also some efforts to look at some longer-term solutions. So that was that aspect of the meeting. The other thing, we heard a little bit more about the stimulus that Mr. Duda recommended, and I just want to clarify, at least what I'm hearing, and Steve, if you've heard things, please correct me, that at least from the House proposal, what's proposed has sort of two pieces, one piece of which is what Mr. Duda referred to, which would be money with a stimulus goal for school construction projects. And that money, if it were to be passed, would somehow come through somebody, the state government in some form, choosing projects and how dollars would get allocated around a state. So again, I'm certain that Mr. Cook and Mr. Duda are working on having our projects in that pile. The second piece would be money that's less expected to be considered a stimulus and more helping state governments. And that would be money that would go toward Title I funds and special ed funding for each and every district. There's actually a document on the House Education and Labor Committee website that has every single solitary school district in the nation and the amount that would go to them if this package were to be passed, which again is big, it's a big if. But it would be, it's based on a formula, and if it were to pass, it would definitely bring dollars to Hazlet based on the same formulas with the same restrictions for those two programs. My understanding is that that the proposal would be money for in 2 years, the first part of which coming soon, hopefully in the next month or two, and then a second installment next year as well. It won't come anywhere near to solving the problems that we've heard about this evening, but it will perhaps help make up for some shortfalls. And as you guys all probably read in the paper this last couple days too about the ISD funding issues, and it will be things that might help in that regard in the short term, because these are one-time funds. They're not long-term fixes, but if it were to happen. Exactly.
Yeah, let's remember, nothing's passed yet.
Nothing has passed yet, so nobody is
Don't spend it
recommending
yet.
anybody
Long
spending
road
any
ahead of
money.
us here.
Don't
But it's
plan.
something to watch.
Think about it.
It's just something to watch.
It's a
And
Christmas gift in spring or summer.
something, and again, through NSBA,
Maybe.
we've been urged to, contact our congressman and let him know, please vote for it. I have to believe that, many people know Michigan's in trouble. I don't know that we need to tell many people that the state government's having problems. So
But it sounds like it would be possible to go to that list and find out what the dollar amount
I
should
can
it
tell you,
pass
yes, it was, the formulas were gonna give in the neighborhood of $94,000 of Title I funds and $300,000 of special ed funds to
That make
Hazlet.
up for the 200,000 we're gonna lose
Well,
in
Maybe.
special ed funds.
if it were,
Methinks you're
If-
getting
if-
ahead
if
of
it
yourself
shows
there.
up.
right. So, but that is, if anybody's interested, I can tell you where to find it. But they're all, again, those numbers of formulas, there are numbers on the spreadsheet for construction money that would be useless to look at on a district basis, so it doesn't make any sense. The last, just thing from MASB, if you haven't checked out already, they do have a new website, and I haven't messed around with it too much, but they were encouraging people
Yes.
to explore it.
Saw it being promoted, so, good.
And that's that.
Any other items from the board? Okay, we have, thank you, Chris. We have 5 action items this evening. Would anybody like to pull an action item from the list?
I'd like to pull number 4, the recommendation to terminate Meridian High School principal position.
Okay, we'll pull number 4. Anybody want to pull anything else? All right, I'll accept the motion to approve the remaining items, which are approval of the minutes of January 12th regular board meeting, approval of the minutes of the January 20th Finance and Facilities Committee meeting, approval of the minutes of the January 16th Policy and Personnel Committee meeting, and 2 tuition release requests.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll come back to item number 4. Chris?
I asked to have this pulled for 2 reasons. I just want to make sure that we're completely clear what we are and aren't deciding when we act on this action item. It seemed that when we took action last November, we took action on Mr. Duda's recommendation to consider explanation of why we might have to eliminate the Meridian High School principal position for financial reasons. And it felt like that was reported as a decision to close Meridian High School. And I just want to be clear that what we're being asked tonight is to act on that recommendation and resolve to terminate that position because of extreme financial consequences for the district if we weren't to. It's not a decision to close or maintain or do anything with any program in the district.
Chris, would you mind expanding upon the source of the financial stress in Meridian County?
Well, I think that perhaps there might be others that would be best
Well,
to, but
From my
it's, oh, you need to
understanding,
explain, okay.
the biggest reason for that is the very fact that we have had roughly, 60% student reduction, number of students approximately.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe it might be in excess of that. So the reality is the student count within the building is dramatically and drastically reduced. The teacher per student ratio is very high, given the number of students that are there on an actual basis per day. And the understanding of needing a supervisory position for the few teachers that are in the building is no longer necessary. Okay.
And I think, Chris, I appreciate you raising this because I think it was sort of erroneously reported that what the action we took before was to close Meridian High School, and that action has not been before this board, and that was not what we decided. Nor is that what this is about.
And I guess I'd just like to ask, that's probably in a way a moot question, but if there were some miracle where our financial situation were to change dramatically and the student count and faculty count were different, we would, even taking this action tonight, do we still have the ability to go back and reinstate that position if?
Well, I think the board has the ability to reinstate any position at any time. So the answer to that is yes.
But I think the source of the question, as I understand it, this is notice that is necessary.
Right. By
It's
contract.
by contract. And
This is something that we have to do.
so
But I
we
do
have to
think
do it
when
now.
we
in order-
vote for this, we are voting with recognition that there are changes that will be made at Meridian High School. That was the only thing you're in your comment that I'm kind of taking exception to. This is definitely, there's going to be a change in the program. There's no doubt about that. I don't think we should pretend otherwise.
And it's a stark reality of the current composition of the school. And obviously, we have held Greg in high regard for the wonderful work that
Yeah.
he's done there, a mission, as he had called it, and has touched many lives. And I'd like to think that this has been a wonderful source for these young individuals to continue in their academic studies. Unfortunately, the demographics now don't support the structure as it currently exists. And that's why we have to proactively and with much reflection and groundwork, which is what we're currently doing with this new commission, to make the right decisions for the school district.
I would like to just add too, that this is not a decision that has been made quickly. This has been something that, you know, we had Mike Rogers in here in Meridian High School, was that a year and a half ago? Maybe that he was in here, and, you know, so there has been consistent work in progress to come up with some good solutions.
All right. Don?
Yeah, I want to get my 2 cents in. Yeah.
Take a nickel.
Yeah. Well, Lori made one of the comments that I wanted to make, that it should be known that this really has been a long process. We invited in other school districts. It goes back to the fact that it costs so much more to run that per student. And we just didn't have the support from some of the major districts around that had students in there.
Right.
And, that takes its financial toll, and this district, certainly in these financial times, just couldn't afford to keep subsidizing very heavily the education of students from other districts that apparently weren't willing to pay the cost for their own students. So, yeah, we took a long time getting here. We brought in superintendents from other districts, those that would come, legislators, and did everything we could to try to save that, and it hasn't happened. The one comment that I wanted to make too is about the principal and Mr. Shook. And from the first time I met him and had him show me around Meridian High and tell me what the work was that they did there, I quickly became a believer and really appreciated and still do really appreciate everything Mr. Shook has done there. And clearly, this vote has nothing to do with dissatisfaction about him. It is purely an economic decision given the student reduction and the finances. And I, and I'm sure a number of other board members, regret that we have to do it, but we really don't, in my opinion, have any choice financially. And that's what it's all about, and only that.
All right, I would just add editorial, I think the first of many difficult decisions ahead of us, given budget scenarios. Motion to dispatch with this action item.
So moved.
Which way do you want to move? Because
As presented.
as presented. And a second, any discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion to eliminate the Meridian High School principal position signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next meeting will be February 9th. It will be a work session starting at 5:30. We are going to take up this issue of the ad hoc committee on struggling kids and what it means, how it's coming along, and I think Chris will really be our connection. I don't think we're going to have presentations or that sort of thing. It's just really going to be a conversation among the board about what we'd like to see happen there, and so that we can both hear from and feed, I think, some direction back to the ad hoc committee. They're dealing with some pretty difficult issues with regard to Meridian High School in its current form, how we use it to deal with struggling students. So that'll be the work session on February 9th.
We'll also have an update on the budget at that time.
One of the things we're trying to do is the next meeting of the ad hoc committee is February 17th.
Correct.
So we wanted to have this work session before that next committee, the ad hoc committee. So, any other announcements? If not, motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Motion and a second. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're putting problems on the computer. You have to read differently on the computer. We find that kids have real low attention spans. So if we have books and handouts, they'll read 5 minutes, put it away, and they never read a continuous thought. You can't put it away if it's on the internet or on the computer. You got to read it all at once. You got to process it all at once. If you're going to write, your frame of writing is not a piece of paper. You know, it's different, and that's a real challenge. So sooner or later they have to come. And that's where I'm getting at. What do we expect those students to be able to use their reading and writing skills in probably a very dramatically different way? And what I want to say is it's not just the math, science department for technical reading. The English department has to get in on it. The social studies, and as Scott said, even PE, music, there's some important ways that music people can communicate. They're going to have to communicate. And it's not just singing and playing instruments. So, I mean, that's where I hope we would eventually move towards.
Anything else? Thank you very much,
Thank you.
both of you.
Thank you.
Very good presentations, very informative. Next item on the agenda, discussion item, Reproductive Health Committee Report. See Jamie Gent coming to the microphone. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Reproductive health, the state mandated within the last year that we must have a definition of what reproductive or sex education is for your school district. To give you the guidelines, the outline of what has to happen whenever we change any part of the curriculum or we change any of our videotapes or anything that we do in sex education, there's a series of steps we must go through. First, we must get the reproductive health. First, we must teacher is going to use it, or the group of teachers that want to use it, make a presentation to the Reproductive Health Committee. That consists of clergymen, doctors, teachers, parents, and students from the school district. This committee looks at what information these people want to add to the reproductive health curriculum, evaluate it, watch the videotape, listen to their presentation, and then they either approve it or they say, no, we're not going to do this. If they do approve it, then we have public hearings. The 2 public hearings you must have must be at least 1 week apart. So we've had those, and they do the 2 public hearings. Then after the 2 public hearings are done, then I bring the new information to you, the Board of Education. Well, to decide what information must be within what we must do this for, the state said you must have a definition of what your sex education program teaches. We are not adding anything to our sex education program. We are not changing our sex education program. All this definition is telling us what is in our sex education program. So if we wish to change anything in our sex education program, it is to be within this definition. That means I must put that whole process into effect. If a teacher comes to me and says, I have a videotape that deals with AIDS prevention and AIDS education, then I have to say, well, then we have to come and meet with my committee. We'll get together, we'll approve this material, we'll have our 2 meetings, and we'll bring it to the board. That's because that is within this definition, and that's what we need this definition approved, because then we will have a written definition or a parameter to work within in dealing with sex education. So it doesn't cause these people who are volunteers on the committee, it's an open committee. If anybody wishes to be a member of the committee, they just contact me, and I try to find them spots in the committee. We get together on a need basis. We meet once a year, sometimes twice a year. This year we'll meet at least twice. I will be back again to see you in probably March, because we have an AIDS curriculum change, and not curriculum change, but new materials in AIDS prevention in 7th grade, and a lot of new material in AIDS prevention in 9th grade, almost 6 videotapes. Some of them are for sex education, but a couple of them are for drug education, but they do cross into the sex education curriculum, and the fact they deal with AIDS and AIDS prevention, so this committee has to meet and has to approve it. So that's what this definition is about. It gives us a parameter to deal with it, and that's why I have to present it to you tonight, so you can look at it, and then we need it approved the next time you convene. I think it's in January, isn't it?
Just a point of reference, there is an attachment, attachment A.
No,
is
attachment
the-
A, I'm sorry, yes, attachment A in your
And that's included, and this was presented to our policy committee
Policy
just prior
committee,
to our
at
meeting
6
tonight.
o'clock.
And if it met with the board's approval, it would be a part of our next agenda.
Comments from the committee?
Not
None?
really. We heard basically the same thing and asked a couple minor questions, but
Okay, any questions
no
over here?
issues politically, no.
Well, we discussed it, and the main point, is that it's not a change. It's
Right.
just setting something up that the state requires us to do as part of the process, so. It's not a very, we say sex education, and everybody thinks controversy, and it's really not
Okay,
a controversial thing.
good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Our last discussion item tonight, the Michigan Schools Energy Cooperative. Dave Martell is coming to the front. Concerns our opportunities under deregulation for purchasing gas, I believe, isn't that?
Maybe. Good evening. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about MISC, Michigan School Energy Cooperative, and tell you a little bit about it and how we think we could use it to our best advantage at Hazlitt. It's an organization that's been set up to purchase bulk energy, whether that's natural gas or electricity in the future. It was set up by a lot of our founding organizations of MSBO and MASB and MASA and MAISA, and Middle Cities. But basically, it's a lot of the organizations that we belong to that from the school boards and the superintendents and the business managers to try to take advantage of bulk purchasing for natural gas and electricity as we're moving into deregulation. We've been deregulated for natural gas for a while, and you know that we are purchasing bulk natural gas. But also, as we look forward to electricity, there's also an opportunity. And this organization has contracted with an expert in the field who's doing similar types of activities with like the Chicago schools and with the state of California on a statewide basis. They were contracted to do the same thing here in Michigan. And it's an organization where we can join at no cost, and any fees that would help support the organization would only be generated if you purchased electricity or natural gas through them. One of the reasons why I think it would be good for us to join is that, not necessarily for natural gas, because there's something else on your agenda we'll discuss, that where we have not chose a proposal from this group to do natural gas, but for electricity, it's still an area that hasn't really opened up yet, especially for schools. But there is going to be a process where there's going to be a bidding for the ability to become a pilot program for electricity in the future. And for whatever reason, schools have been put in the arena of one of the highest paying users of electricity. Some of the lowest paying users would be like the major employers in the state. Obviously, they in the past have lobbied the Public Service Commission much more efficiently or effectively than schools have, which I don't know if we've done a whole lot of that, period. But there's a greater opportunity for us to still be able to bid a price that would be acceptable to the to like Consumers Power and other electric generators, and get us into that process early on. We pay somewhere around 10 cents a megawatt or whatever the term is, and the going rate for purchasing directly is about 5. So it's about half the cost. So we have an issue where we can contribute more than other areas of the state for to cover the stranded costs, and that's where the utilities are looking to have this process bidded so that they can get more of the stranded costs covered during the pilot program. So I think by going with this state organization to at least put our name in the hat with everybody else, there's a good chance that we could be able to move into electric deregulation earlier than if we were on our own or with another organization. It doesn't really bind us to this organization at all, and when it comes time to the point where we are going to be bidding our electricity to as a part of this process, then we'll be going with the lowest bidder anyway. Now, initially, that might mean that because of the pooling of us with others, other districts in the state, if we get chosen because of our large group, then we would probably purchase through MISIC, and then at a later time when it's opened up to everybody in the state anyway, then I think we would go back to looking at other possibilities. So really, it's kind of wanted to talk to you about joining this because I think it's an organization that potentially could help us, and it doesn't cost us it doesn't cost us to belong unless we get our electricity through them. We also, on your agenda tonight, have an action item for the purchase of natural gas, and you'll remember that we went through this process a year ago and selected EMC Gas Transmission Company to purchase natural gas bulk. And it was a process where we were monitoring their service and their organization because this process has been new to us. And in the meantime, there's a couple more organizations that have come on the map, so to speak, for purchasing natural gas. One is MISIC, and the other is the Metro Bureau Consortium out of the Detroit area, where they have a consortium of some universities and schools in that area. And so we asked proposals from all three and reviewed those. And we're at a point in time now where natural gas prices are kind of unusually high for the situation. There's no hurricane coming and things like that, but they've been unusually high, and they expect them to drop. And so we didn't get good proposals from the two new ones. They basically wouldn't give us a price and said, well, here's some of the things we've done recently. And they were significantly higher than the proposal we got from our current organization, EMC Gas Transmission. They gave us a cap amount that was about 8% higher than what we paid last year as a fixed price. And as soon as the price drops, then we'll go into a formula that'll reduce our costs for the rest of the term. We also have in this proposal that we're asking you to act on tonight to have the end, instead of being November 30th, which is not the best time to purchase gas, but to go to like a June 30th time frame, which would give us time where we're buying out more in the future and can alleviate some of the hurricane problems that happen from year to year. So I think all in all, it's going to be best for us to stay with our current company. They've given us good service, and we've been happy with it, and they have the best price right now for us. And we'll continue to monitor the costs on the open market, and as they drop, which is expected, and we have seen some reduction recently, then we should be all set to lower the price over the long haul until June of '99. Okay. And then at that time, again, we'll take a look at anybody who's in the market at that time and go with the best price and service combination. So.
Okay. Question? Charlie?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh,
You have
sorry,
your
I
hand
was
up.
just going to make comment on the question.
Oh, okay. Dave and I talked before the meeting, because I had a couple of questions on this, and I guess I just want to get clarification. Is there a new agreement or a revised agreement that you were going to sign that sort of explained the pricing a little better? The reason I asked that was, when I read through the pricing on this thing, it sounded like we weren't going to be able to reduce the price on natural gas until
after the year's up.
until November of 99 or 98. And then we would be able to reduce it for the remaining 6 months or until June. And Dave indicated to me in our conversation, no, that's not really what EMC intended to say.
That's correct. And actually, when I was putting this packet together, and I read that again, I said, you know, I knew what I was looking for when I read it, and it made sense to me then, but as I read it cold a little bit later, I wondered if that would be misinterpreted, and I also wanted to make sure. And so I called them, and they actually gave me a new one that they sent in fax to me that does indicate that it is, at the point that prices go down, we'll be able to, like let's say in a couple months, if they come down where we think they will, we can reprice at that time. That $2.69 would just be the cap. We would never be charged more than that. And then depending on, there'll be a blending of the rate that we've agreed to plus what they can buy on the market. And depending on how far we get through the winter months, the blending will be more in our favor. But right now, if we did it, you know, they basically went on and purchased gas on our behalf and had done that previously for the bulk of their clients so that they could get a lower price, knowing that, you know, potentially these prices were going to go up. So they kind of bought some gas early before they went as far as it did for everybody. So, for instance, ours is capped at $2.69. The other proposals were over $3, so it was significantly higher. And a lot of times it's whatever the spot market is at the time, and that's why they didn't want to give us a proposal. But EMC knew they have you know, more than 100 clients, and so they bought some gas ahead of time, knowing that it was going to work out, that they could help their clients with that. So.
The only other comment I have, that's fine, I appreciate that. On the MISIC thing is that I think there's going to be strength in numbers.
That's correct.
From what I'm hearing about electric deregulation, you better have some groups of people together in order to get the best price, because our homes we'll probably be paying more electricity at our home, you know, and the schools, you probably come up with a better deal. And another reason to join, I think, is it's gonna be a good source of information. Because this is a political hot potato, and there's just, everybody's jockeying for position to get, for their own self-interest. And Thursday, I have a legislative committee meeting, and Frank Kelly's gonna be there talking about this, about electric deregulation, so maybe I'll get some more confusing information for us. Thank you.
Jeff?
Well, essentially, that was my comment. I think this is a good idea to join this committee. I think the more we know and the sooner we know it, the better off we're going to be, and I agree with strength in numbers is going to be it. Plus, I think we've had good experience with the gas deregulation process, and we sort of came into that cold, and we should be better prepared going in. So, we can't beat the price for joining, so do it.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Next section, board reports, Finance and Facility Committee. Finance and Facility Committee.
I was talking, no, we have not met.
Okay. Policy and Personnel Committee.
Yes, we met tonight. We had two topics. One was the sex education thing that we just heard the presentation on. And the other was the special education graduation requirement document that we talked with Jamie Chen on, and it will be presented at our next board meeting in January.
Say jury board.
Jerry Boardman.
Jerry Boardman.
Jury Boardman, that's what I meant.
I knew what you meant to say.
Sorry.
Okay.
He's back to watching me too.
Can I ask you guys a question? Did you looked at this agreement for this agreement with MASB to rewrite the bylaws? Is that right? You guys looked at that?
No.
You did? Okay. Part of the packet there? No, yeah, it's just item D. I just wondered if it went through policy.
That was at a previous, wasn't at this one.
No, it was an earlier one, right?
Or
This is the
earlier,
first time I've
right.
seen the contract with him, right?
Right.
I just wanted somebody to explain. I don't know if this is the best time, but.
What, the hold harmless?
Yeah, I want to know what it means to, hold harmless.
It doesn't mean anything. They can be sued just like anybody else can.
Well, I just don't want it to be that if something they write erroneously in the bylaws 5 years from now is wrong, and then we get sued for it, that it says that they're held harmless for that. And it's their
Exactly what it says.
Legally.
We wouldn't be able to sue them, but somebody else would be able to sue all of us.
But we're first.
Yeah,
We're holding them harmless.
And so if they make an error,
We don't have to accept anything that they give us.
Yeah.
It's up to us to make those choices.
But we are paying for their professionalism and their knowledge that obviously we don't have, so. But I think when you're dealing with matters like this, the law and everything else, I would think that would be almost an expectation of any consultant to try to protect themselves. But why don't we challenge them with that at our next meeting?
I would guess that again, it's probably standard fare, like you say, just like it is with the township, just to get the boat in the water over there and for the kids. We have to hold the harmless. I mean, if they are negligent, they are not harmless. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but
Yeah,
if
that's
they
right.
are negligent, they're gonna be held harmless, whether we hold them less or not. We may be involved in it. And I would suspect that the committee and the board as a whole, if we see a recommendation or an area of a policy which we question legally, it is certainly within our parameters to take that to our own attorneys to ask for their advice.
We will be approving as a board every policy.
Right. And
We're
if
not
we
just
see-
approving
That's correct.
carte
That's
blanche.
right.
But you will be seeing, as a committee, these policies much more in detail than we will, as a board as a whole, although we will be looking at them.
You're welcome to look at them
You'll
in
be
detail.
And I'm
You'll
sure
be
I'll have
seeing
plenty
them
of
too.
advance notice and time to peruse all of them,
Yes.
just like you do. But
Especially-
we don't have the opportunity to discuss them in depth as much as you do as a committee, because we're on individuals. But, and I'm certainly glad that's going on. But I'm just saying, when we see those as a board, if there is an area in which there could be a question regarding the legality of it, I would suggest that we all, I'm sure there's no argument, we would run these things by our own attorney to see whether or not this sounds
We've done that before.
like, and we've done it before, that's correct. I mean, this is nothing new.
Right.
But to answer the whole harmless thing,
It does say in the notes, I don't think it matters, that the recommendation comes from finance facilities. It's really policy personnel. So just want to give the correct credit to the correct
Right, credit where it's
committee.
due.
Absolutely.
Our silence was indicative of.
They would have it no other way.
Right.
I'm sure.
I'm sure.
We'll hold you harmless on that.
Items from the board.
I'd like to light on something real quickly that I seem to have left out of my original report. It is that on November 11th, the Quizbusters team played its second round game in the WKAR Quizbusters against Waverly High School, winning by a score of 520 to 180. This was the highest score in at least 2 years in the Quizbusters tournament. This game will be aired January 25th at 11:30 a.m. on PBS. I'm assuming 23. The next Quizbusters game for Hazlet will be held on January 13th at 8:15 p.m. Airtime March 8th at 11:30 a.m. I'm sorry for that.
No problem.
I have a couple things.
Kathy?
I just want to reiterate what Bob mentioned about the Madrigal dinner. It's not just for parents of singers. It's a wonderful evening, $25 a person, gets you a full 4-course meal, and kids dressed in Madrigal outfits, and they sing beautifully, and it's a really wonderful time. And you can get tickets as of tomorrow, I think, is kind of the cutoff date. So if you want tickets, you need to get them by tomorrow. And the other thing is, we had, Jamie Gent did another Meet the Coach for the winter sports, and it was well attended by lots of parents, and I think the teams, almost all the teams except for my son's 9th grade basketball team, there were only 3 people, but all the other teams were very well attended, and it was a wonderful evening. And the parents, what happens is the coaches meet with the individual teams before the mass meeting, and then you all go into the gym. Everybody
Also
goes
with
in
the parents.
together with parents, and you know, the coach gives you a rundown of what the expectations are for the sport, and then you go in together and get to meet all the teams. And I just felt a lot of spirit. I think it's a great way to kick off the season with a lot of school spirit, and girls were hooting at the boys, and the boys were hooting at the girls. And so it's
Yeah,
really,
and
it was really fun.
I think all the coaches had parent meetings also before
Yes, they
that.
have
So
to
it
do
gives
that,
them an
so.
opportunity at the beginning of the season to, sit with a room full of whatever parents are interested in talking to them and tell them what they're planning on doing with the team during the season and so forth. And
It's really
so,
neat.
Yeah, it's a real nice night.
Good. Charlie?
I've had a chance to see the TV monitor throughout the program. It looks like Brian and his crew are doing a good job. I see a lot of changes to the programming tonight, so if you watch the re-recording, I think
Need to
you'll
get the
see
color
some
fixed
nice
on that
things.
monitor, though.
Well, yeah, it's pretty green there in the corner, but they're flashing the agenda up on the screen, and so some nice changes. Congratulations.
Can I sit in your place
Nice
next
job.
time?
Sure, you can sit in my place.
Finance and facility needs to see that.
Yeah, we have to approve the money for this TV equipment.
For the ongoing review responsibilities.
Ron, I just
Beth.
wanted to, having not been a member of the committee, I just wanted to tell the committee that worked on the staff appreciation.
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
Reception, how nice it was, and how much we appreciate the
Outstanding
good work
job.
that you guys did. It was wonderful.
We've already booked the room, the date, and the food for next year, so.
Good idea.
For
right.
the
We talked about
next
that.
committee,
Right.
What committee?
We've done it.
if you think it's.
Okay, anything else? Action items, we actually have 7 action items. The 7th item that I'm adding on to it is the special board meeting for December the 15th at 6 p.m. Do I have a motion, or do I have anybody that wants to pull 1 through 6? I do not. Do I have a motion to approve
So
1
moved.
through 7?
Support.
Moved and support. Item 1 is the approval of the minutes for the November 24th regular school board meeting. Number 2 is the approval of the direct purchase of natural gas agreement. Number 3 is the acceptance of a Meridian High School tuition student. Number 4 is a personnel recommendation. Number 5 is the approval of the comprehensive board policy update agreement. And number 6 is the tuition release request. Number 7, again, is the special board meeting for next Monday, December 15th, 6 p.m. here in the administration building. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? None. The next meeting, other than the one next Monday, will be January the 12th, 1998, at 7 p.m. We will not be broadcast next week, as it will be a work session. One note on that, please remember, we do have an hour limit, so people, please come with your questions for Chrisman. We won't be having a long discussion. It will be to, yes, yes, it will be to have any questions on their presentation or their proposal. Rather than having it done at committee level, we'll just do it at the board for 1 hour and 1 hour only. It's Kevin. Okay, he knows us already. Okay, anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Didn't think so. We're adjourned.